Boom, boom. The headsets are dynamite. I'm loving this. But all right, bam, Andy, thanks for thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for coming by my house, man.
Easy. Yeah, that's a little loud, but Andy just introduced me to the awesome world of headphone microphones for travel, where I've just been lugging around a whole suitcase full of stuff, and then now we got this compact.
Yeah, the world of podcasting is so unique. So I started podcasting probably 2016, 17.
Oh, really?
It was a lot it was like a very limited amount of content. There was a lot of content, but not compared to now where everybody does podcasts. Like in their own direction, in their own realm, whatever their interest or passion or hobby is. So it's been really interesting to watch it evolve into what it's become.
Yeah, so obviously you're the Flip Flop Guy podcast.
Yeah, I do. So I was a lot more regular with doing episodes, and with the enormity of the growth of the podcast community, it's kind of put me in this like position where like I love doing it, but it's also now when I go out and hang out with people, there's already so many people podcasting people where I'm like, I'm going to let other people do their thing. I'm not chomping at the bit to get certain interviews and stories and
if it works
like
out,
that.
If it works out, it works out. It's organic.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I do think it's a cool world. The fact that you like, again, like that was still kind of where it was like now everybody has a podcast.
Yes.
But back then, like it wasn't the case.
No.
So what was, it was still under the same name?
No. Originally it was started with me and a buddy, and it was all about hunting California and kind of Western hunting. If you go back through all our original episodes, they're still in the same queue and everything. But yeah, it was called Legion OST DIY Outdoors Pie. It's fucking complicated. The whole name was like, it was way too much. But we had a really great time doing it. Learned a lot. Got to make a lot of really, really neat connections. Amazing conversation.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest part about it is like, again, it's network opening connections, and then it's like the conversations that hopefully not only add value for the people involved in the conversation, but everybody listening. And obviously it ends up being a cool little world, and it's why I do it and continue to share as much value as I can. But on the podcast, the opening question is like obviously Chasing Edges podcast. Where in your life right now are you chasing edges? Where are you learning, growing, that kind of thing?
That's a solid question. For me, I'm always chasing edges in my hunting and athletics side. I have a very bad knee injury that I suffered and a bad back injury that I suffered when I was 19. I fell 35 feet out of a forklift, broke my knee, my back, lacerated my liver, smashed my face, and had a ton of roofing slate land on top of me.
Good God.
So, I mean...
Yeah, you mentioned it briefly when we were ripping this on ice, but like go deeper. I want to hear the whole story if you don't mind telling it.
I'll tell it to like...
an extent?
The best that I can without harming anyone. Basically, so I'd gotten sober when I was 19 years old. I'd lost both my jobs. And at the time I was homeless, living in my car. Terrible way to live. I've been sober for 17 years, so I'll
hell yeah, congrats.
Throw that in there. By the time, I think I was like 6 months sober, and I had gotten a new job, and this guy had offered me a job, and he was like, if you show up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., you have a job. And that was right after I lost my other two jobs. And I knew for me, the type of alcoholic that I was at the time, I couldn't drink the day that he offered me the job. Because if I did, and it was like 9 a.m., and I'd usually start drinking right around the time I woke up, it was like 9 a.m. And I knew that day that if I were to drink, there's no way that I was going to make the obligation the next morning. Because when I started drinking, all bets were off. The insanity just pursued. So I white-knuckled that day, showed up the next morning at 5 a.m., got the job, and I white-knuckled the rest of the week. Anyways, long story short, fast forward 6 months, we're doing a job in Piedmont, California on one of the most beautiful homes I've ever seen. Like, had the butler's quarters and hidden walls, and you know what I mean? Like
the works, yeah.
It had the works. It was
a McMansion, yeah.
Yes, like 100%. So we're removing the roof that had been put on in 1912, and it was slate tiles from, I think they were like 36 by 24 all the way down to like 7 by 4 pieces of tile. I'm removing them all. I'm loading them on the grade all into the pallet off of the scaffolding. And the foreman on the job site that day, who was known for Oxycontin and known for getting loaded on the job, he kind of disappeared for a bit in the morning. You know, who knows for what, and we won't get into those details. And he comes back down to the job site in a rush, finds out the owner's on the way with the owner of the house. They want to see the progress. In a rush, loaded the pallet up to where I was, told me to get in it and start organizing the slate. I was 6 months into my job, so I didn't think like check the straps, check, you know what I mean? Check all this different stuff. I'm just doing what I'm told and working as hard as I can. And I get in and I'm in there organizing very large pieces of slate on one side and very small pieces of slate on the other side. And, you know, at the same time trying to keep everything balanced. And I'm in one side and the pallet flipped while I was in it because there was no straps. There was not secure, you know, like increased the list of OSHA violations. Pallet flipped while I was in it. I fell 35 feet, landed on my knee, and the left side of my body sustained no damage whatsoever. The impact on the right side of my body was my knee, then my back. I don't know what it was that made my liver rupture or lacerate, but my liver split. And then next thing I know, I woke up in the hospital. But that was kind of what happened there. So to bring that full circle back to what we were talking about, you know, like my competitive edge in the, you know, or where I'm always seeking growth and fitness and how that correlates to the outdoors is I suffer from major injuries. I'm in constant pain every single day, up and down stairs, up and down mountains, whatever I'm doing. There's always, you know, a threshold between a 6 and an 8 going on in my kneecap or my back or whatever it is. So for me, I'm always trying to figure out new ways to train, better ways to train. We were talking about breath work and sleep. You know, I had Serrano work on me and figure out a lot of different like messed up things. It's probably all residual from that accident because I've never done anything to correct the way that my body has operated since that accident. So I have no idea how shifted I am to one side or to the other, trying to overcompensate and everything like that. Anyways, so that's part of what I'm always trying to do. Grow further in hunting, have a better understanding of hunting. I'm a proficient hunter. I've hunted my entire life. I taught hunter's education for, you know, roughly a decade in the state of California and teaching new hunters, taking new hunters out. I was very fortunate. I had 800 acres in California that I managed for pigs, so I could cherry pick from my hunter's ed classes and bring fathers and sons out and new hunters out into the field and show them what a rub looks like and show them what a wallow is and, you know, show them all these different things that in any other circumstance they'd never have a mentor and they'd just kind of walk out and like, I don't know what I'm looking for. Like,
I don't know what a wallow is.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
I still need a mentor. I'm still learning the world. I'm learning quickly, but I'm still learning the world.
Yeah. So I'd get to do that. So I've always, in the hunting space, I've always sought out hunters that are far more efficient than I am. And I try to surround like when I get to come home, there's a lot of guys here that I live around that are my good friends that are proficient hunters in all levels across the board, all, you know, in sheep hunting and elk hunting, international, you know, stateside, doesn't matter. They're absolutely phenomenal hunters. And I get to bounce stuff off them and I get to listen and I get to watch. I get to be the fly in the wall when they're all talking. And for me, what that does is it helps me stay right-sized and it helps me understand that no matter how good I am at something, I can always be better, and I can always seek more knowledge and information to better myself when I'm in the field and whatever it is that I'm chasing.
Dude, that's dynamite. There's so much to unpack there. That's really cool. One, well, it's just what I've found is like on again all the incredible humans I've talked to, there's themes, and like there's always breadcrumbs to success, or however you want to look at it, but and like it gets played out. But like the 5 people you surround yourself with, whether I'm sure it's more in the hunting community, but you're putting yourself in a position to constantly be the student. You're never like, your ego's never getting too big. You realize that, oh, I really don't know that much, or they have new things. Like you're open to it, like being open to that and being humble enough to ask questions, ask advice, and you're in a constant learning state. Like that solves a lot of problems in and of itself, because now your environment's built to grow. And then now you don't have to like overemphasize like the intentional growth of like going out and finding them, because your environment's already there.
Well, and I don't have to go out in front like I'm something that I'm not. You know what I mean? And yes, I've hunted. Yes, I've killed a lot of animals. Yes, I've done a lot in the outdoor space for myself and what I would consider success, or being a successful hunter. But I don't. Part of the reason why I stay surrounded by guys like that and staying the student and staying teachable is that I'm not out there soliciting advice or information. Like if someone asks my advice, I'll give it, but I don't really want to have the, this is what, I'm very opinionated, and I have my opinions about what works, because that's,
your experience has led you to that.
My experience, my, fact-based, tangible experience in the field has led me to the opinions that I have as far as what works and what doesn't work for me as an individual. But, I try to, when I enter a room, even whether it's adult onset hunters or, hunters that have been hunting their whole life, I don't like to just dish out information unless it's, in conversation and an appropriate time for me to be doing that.
Yeah, not just going in there to pound your chest or preach or anything. It's a living environment.
Yes. Yeah, coexisting environment where we can all get along.
Yeah.
And help each other. And I've been fortunate to get, shout out, throwing shade at Bert Soren and getting involved in that world, meeting a lot of the folks that I have that have been able to help elevate what I'm trying to do as far as like my fitness side and wrapping my head around that, because I always had like my workout routine and that was what I did, and I've never had a personal trainer or anyone tell me one way or the other as far as what I'm doing, if it's good or not, and now I have guys that can like, tell me, well, maybe you should try this, or if you're feeling that way, there's things that you can do to feel better, especially you're getting older. I haven't had a solid night's sleep since that accident when I fell. 5 to 6 hours is about my maximum sleep cycle, unless I'm sleeping in the cave at Bert's house, because it's pitch black. Yeah. You don't have to wake up for anything. But, it's all of that stuff that really helps me, and it keeps me in a place where like I have so much more to learn. There's so much more information out there for me to grasp onto and hold on to and learn and try to understand and achieve the next level and I couldn't tell you what the next level is for me, but achieve that next level and continue to grow through that.
Yeah, I think it's the same as your hunting. Mm-hmm. Like, so now, like everything's connected. Like, nothing in life happens in like isolation. Yeah. Like, same as like nothing in the body happens in isolation. Your knee's messed up, it's gonna do something to the hips and the back and all those things. Just like what life is, everything's connected. And the cool thing there is like now, like the mindset, like same as your hunting, it applies to your movement patterns and those kind of things. And then like, okay, you get into athletic performance. Like, athletic performance is athletic recovery as well. So it's sun, sleep, it's all these other supplements and vitamins, stretching, strengthening.
That's like a big goal for me, is to start after you and I talked at the Clean Eats convention. The amount of stretching that I've been doing for my back and my shoulders
Yeah.
Since just the few exercises you've shown me, anytime that I can, I'm going to sit down and.
Have you done the psoas trigger pointing and stuff yet?
I haven't messed with that yet.
We'll break that down after this, just 'cause,
Yeah.
like that's another like just common symptom. Like if you open that up, some of your low back.
I use a so right, but I don't know if that actually helps.
Yeah, so I like the so right too. It's a step in the right direction. I like one point of contact, so like the two, it kind of takes away from the depth and the motion you can get, or like the pull away from the pelvic bone and the rib cage, whatever. But like it's a great tool. But so you can, if you just use one side of it, same thing. Yeah, great starting point. But you have the tool already, and then I like the trigger point ball. Just like it's just easier for me to like breathe around it, because I use my breath to like amplify stretching. Same as I was telling you, like we have a system built in, like the inhale is sympathetic, the exhale is parasympathetic, like rest and digest. I want to rest on when I'm trying to increase range of motion. So like the inhale creates space, the lung capacity, the intra-abdominal pressure, then the exhale as that collapses, create range of motion. I'm preaching now, which I don't want to be a preacher.
No, you're not. I'm laughing because it's like, you know it so well. It's when we were sitting down and you were going over all of it with me, it was like I felt terrible talking to you about it in the circumstance of like the amount of events that I go to and the amount of times that I tell my family story and tell the history of the flip-flop and all the cooking and everything I'm doing. It's like a recited, memorized verse. So I'm listening to you do it, and it's so second nature for you to be able to tell it flawlessly that like I can just relate to.
That's a funny part of what like our occupations per se, and like that's where I like the podcasting, but I just like the tribes, like the Winter Strong Sore Necks tribe, and you've become part of a bunch of tribes in this realm too, where like everybody has their resume and their rehearsed bits, and like they can add value inside of that. But now like most of these tribes have this like egoless, humble, candid, curious culture where it's okay, what can I give to him? What can I learn from him? And then now it's like the rising tide lifts all ships concept. And like, that's where I really like the environments that like obviously we can both like represent, and I don't really like, we'll shout out everything flip flop. Your style is incredible. The community, the tribe. Like I think the fact that it brings people together, it's a tradition people can adopt really quickly that amplifies their life, like awesome. Yeah. Like I think what you do is like magic to people. So like, and like that realm, like, yeah, everybody follow you, everybody watch the process, get involved, experience it with your family. I think that's awesome. Like that's what you bring to the table, and you brought it from a lifelong tradition, and it's just like the power and the passion and the purpose is unmissable. And so like that's why I vibe and fucking love what you do. But it's cool. But and so I have my own little bit there with the breath and how I found it, how it helped me.
Well, and it's already helped me in 2.5 weeks of implementation. I wanted to mess with it at Winter Strong. Yeah. And there was so many people that it was just like I was like, I can wait. I can wait. I'll get my time to actually get to like experience it and see it. And the first time I sat in an ice bath was at Bert's house. Yeah. And then follow it up sitting with you, and it was just me and you because everybody else was off doing their own thing for the day. Yeah. And to have you break it down for me and really help me understand the more mental side of it and what's going on and how your body's working and how you can use your breath to manipulate what your body's going through, and then furthermore into the stretching and breathing into the stretch, and okay, now take 2 sips, and then pressure, exhale, and then grab harder. Yeah, you know what I mean? Reach further. Yeah, dig deeper.
Yeah, he's referring to the mobility, like some of the mobility stuff where you start to open up space in the rib cage and stuff. Like you get to a full inhale and then you take sips just to get pressure to give other people the background, but a cool part of that too is like I'm gonna do the sauna and ice regardless of if people like it or not, or like again, like I know it's medicinal for me, and then like it's a gauge for my state. It makes me feel great. It flushes out my soreness. Blah blah blah. And if I can share that and explain along the way, now you get to adopt that. Like at some point, I'll adopt the flip flop into my life. I need to kill something with a heartbeat first, but in that realm, but like it's the same. It's the same give and take of that type of tribe, and I think that's again what the ethos of life, or like the idea in life is to like, again, keep chasing edges, learn, grow eternally. Because I think one of the easiest things it's so simple but like the more you know, the less you know. like the more you learn about something, you learn how like and part of what I wanted to talk to you about too, and we can just transition here, is like in life you got to be careful at what you get good at. It probably doesn't serve you to become great at what I do. Mm-hmm. It doesn't serve me right now to become great at what you do. And then like everybody kind of goes through life, and you get good at you have enough time to get good at a few things in life. And I got good at football for a while. Now like I'm gonna coach optimal performance, whether that's breath, sleep, movement, like that. I love that. It keeps me healthy. It has helped people in my life. So it's just like, okay, like I'm going to get good at that. But then like by the time I get good at that, which is going to be probably an endless journey anyways. But a cool part of your story, obviously you started on your history there, but then you got good at something else. It was textiles.
I was really good at textiles. Yeah.
But so a lot of people get good at things, and then there might not be like a I don't know, it's a fire or a purpose behind it. But it's easy to get good at something that pays the bills and does X, Y, and Z. But if you want to kind of dive into that real quick,
textiles.
Not textiles in themselves. That'd be a first on the podcast. But like you got good at that from what I remember, and then you found this platform to share this side of your life.
Yeah.
How did that transition happen?
So I had a really good buddy, and his name, he's still alive. He's battling cancer right now. His name is Chris Anderson. Phenomenal dude. I've known him for a very long time. Huge motorcycle guy, rebuilding knuckles, shovel heads, pan heads. I'm not
my world either.
Not my world. So anyways, I was working in the textile industry, and I was doing color development, brand management, product development, running fall, spring, Christmas, summer, seasonal colors, making color palettes for fabric and textile and everything like that. Now, I didn't actually dye the fabric itself. I made the different colors of dye for Warner Brothers, Vera Wang, the Muppet creators, Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. So I got to make dye colors for whatever it was that they were going to be doing, and then recommending, these colors. This is the palette for now. This is, these are the different palettes, color palettes.
But it sounded like there's an art form to it too, like
100%. Yeah. Well, and that's which rolls over into developing my own spices and mixology, you could say. Getting to take that and you'd have a color, you'd have like a red, and you'd never think this. Most people would never really think or comprehend this, but like you have this beautiful red, but it's not blue enough. So how do you make a red be more blue without it being purple? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then learning how to manipulate the color wheel and the dyes and everything like that. So I can take that, and then I can put that into my food, my spices and things like that I've developed, and figure out like, okay, I need to make this taste a little bit more like this without it being too much.
Yeah, compromising the thing as a whole.
The drive, yeah, exactly. So back to Chris. So Chris worked for this company for decades. On the side, Chris had his Harley motorcycle life, rebuilding, doing everything. You know what I mean? And he absolutely crushed it. And Chris always preached to me, have a passion, because this job is not your passion. Do not make your job your passion. What they do is they provide you a space to get paid and make good money, and then pursue your passions outside of the workplace. And that was very deep and very profound for me, and I wrapped my head around that. And that was also around the time when I was really diving full force back into hunting. I'd hunted my whole life. But when I dove back into it, it was, I don't want to buy beef. At the time, 2010, beef prices were rising similar to what they are now and all that stuff. So it was like, well, I can take 2 weeks off of work. I can get paid. I can buy tags. I can go hunt. I can, it's roughly taking me $3 a year and that would feed me for the entire year. So I wouldn't be having to buy beef.
I love that side of the hunting world. That's one of my biggest motivations to get into hunting now. Yeah, it's just for that simple concept.
Well, and so doing that, then I was learning how to make ravioli, venison ravioli. I was learning how to make, venison lasagna, anything that I could make with venison. And I was doing all my meal plan and preparation with venison. And
your environment dictated. Your only source was that, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So anyways, with Chris's input, I took that and rolled that into hunting, and I didn't know where that was going to go, and I didn't know what it was going to become. 2008, the family recipe of the flip-flop got handed down to me by my dad, which my grandfather had handed the recipe down to him. And I started also doing a lot of cooking legs in our backyard and for family and friends. So not only was my hunting dictating how I was living my life and becoming my passion, it was also dictating how many flip-flop barbecues I could have depending on how successful I was that season. So if I only killed one animal, I was only getting to do 2 flip-flops a year. If I killed 6 animals, then I'd get to do, or not 6, if I killed 3 animals, I'd get to do 6 flip-flops a year. So it really increased my drive and motivation to become a more successful, better hunter, better archer, better rifleman, whatever it was.
Yeah, it fed your life as a whole. Yeah.
Exactly. And little did I know that the flip-flop thing was going to become what it has become. And in that experience, I was cooking, like I had that place where I managed for pigs. Well, those people were very successful. They had a very extensive network of friends, Board of Education of Berkeley, and they were very connected in that world of the Bay Area. And they would do events, and then I would get to go, and I would cook a flip-flop. And the first time I cooked a flip-flop for all of these very anti-hunting, anti-gun people, and they're like, who's this guy? And he's cooking deer, and he killed this deer. This is not okay with us. And all it would take would be mopping the sauce and throwing the leg on the barbecue, and all of a sudden the entire crowd of people would gravitate to me and watch in amazement and awe, as well as breaking boundaries and them being like, I'll try that. Yeah, this is oh my God, this is venison. Like,
yeah, you're a doorway into the world. Yeah.
Right? So kicking in doors and breaking vegans, breaking vegetarians. I think the longest vegan we ever broke was 25 years. They'd been a vegan for 25 years.
That's awesome.
And they're watching all these people eating off this leg, and it's like one of the most wonderful experiences they've ever witnessed over meat, and the interactions and the camaraderie and the joy and the happiness that's coming out of the experience. And they walk up and they're like, okay, this was an ethically killed animal. I can understand that to a point. I have to try it. I haven't ate meat in 25 years. Let me try it. And you're like, absolutely. And they eat it with delight, you know what I mean? And enjoy it and immerse themselves into the community surrounding them, talking to all these other people about how good the animal is. And does this person hunt? Does that person hunt? Tell me the story of the hunt, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Like, because one, for the fact that, like, and I learned this from Bert Soren, just like going through all the heads and his guns and all those things. There's a story behind every gun, every head, every hunt, and that kind of thing. Like that, like the power of storytelling is incredible, anyways. But now you get to work this into, like, again, it's an experience. It's an experience. It's a presentation. It's a story. It's a tradition. It's a lot of things rolled into one. It's just these legs become these lightning rods of communication, we'll call it. But like, I think it's really cool that like that
becomes a gateway.
Yeah,
becomes a gateway and almost like a gateway drug in the sense of pot being a gateway drug. However, they spewed all that through the 90s is like it becomes a gateway for people to try wild game. And then understand the passion and love that goes into it as hunters and what we're doing as far as conservation. And it sparks these conversations of conservation and wild game management and predator management and how the hunter sphere actually works for people that don't understand it and they don't comprehend it and they can't wrap their minds around it until they get the experience. And for me, a lot of the drive behind my brand and, my 10-year goal is that flip-flopping is a household thing that everybody knows of. Everybody in America has experienced it at least once. And I know that's a tall order, and I
think it's sweet. I think it's awesome.
But the goal there is that, and it doesn't have to be me cooking it, right? I'm trying to put the information out there for everybody to be able to adopt our family tradition as their own family tradition and carry it to their family and friends and introduce it to new people that might fall in love with. I can't tell you how many people that were never hunters have become hunters so they could do their own flip-flop and they could do their own experience in their own backyard with their own close circle.
Build their own community. Yeah.
Build their own community around it, and my vision in that is that 10 years down the line, how many new hunters does that bring in? How many new activists for gun rights and Second Amendment rights does that bring to the table? How many new advocates for ethical hunting does that bring to the table? And that is limitless for the preservation I think hunting is part of the fabric that binds America and makes it what it is. And how important is that in a day and age where the decay of the traditional American way of life and the traditional outdoorsman is under attack constantly. And how beneficial will it be for all of us in 10 years from now, or how many of 5 years, whatever it may be, seeing that getting incorporated into every family across America that hunts and experience and showing new people out of my circle that I'd never be able to reach a new way to eat wild game that is delicious. It's not gamey. There's no funky flavor to it. And it's a completely immersive experience for everybody that's there.
Yeah. Again, a lot to unpack there because I think that's it. But it's cool. Well, it's just like, one, the experience itself is cool, and it can be mimicked and it can be shared. And I use this a lot in the context of sports performance and even like any various form of art. Like, because I had Arian Foster, one of the Texans old running backs at the time, and he's in the music industry. And like in their world, there's this concept where like at first you take, then you create, then you innovate. And at some point you did that for yourself. Like you scratched your own itch. And in essence of like solving the beef problem initially for yourself, and then that led into your family's tradition, and then it blew up from there. Like you were solving your own problem. I think some of the best entrepreneurs and artists and everything, like they're kind of scratching their own itch on what they think's missing in the market or what a problem was for them. Like for me, like I needed to control my state better on the football field. Like breathing ended up doing that. So like I've solved my own problem and tried to share it. And like in essence, like that's what, and how I depict it, it sounds like that's what you're doing. And so I think that's cool in essence, and the fact that it's not like you have to show everybody, like you're trying to share, you're trying to give. And the realm I talk about on here a lot too is like help and support are not yours to keep. Like you, like a lot of things have gone in to get you to where you're at, and you know the power of it. So now you're just sharing it and giving it. And I just think that mindset in life comes back tenfold anyway. So
well, and a lot of that mindset too, for me, like, I mean, again, you're dealing with a selfish, self-centered alcoholic, right? My whole life was about me getting drunk all the time to any degree possible, any measure or number, whatever I had to do to achieve that. I would put in 110% effort. And the program that I went through when I got sober teaches selflessness and teaches a life of discipline and teaches self-sacrifice and service to others. And it teaches to be a good human being, hold the door for other people. If someone drops something, pick it up for them. You know, like if you're at the grocery store and someone's struggling, help them with their bags. That's just being a good citizen in society, which for me, I never had that ability to see, understand, comprehend any of it because I was so self-absorbed with drinking and partying and living that life that I never opened my mind to understand that. So when I got sober, taking all that and taking those principles and applying those principles into all of my affairs and into my life, and then trying to replicate that and just trying to be a better person has got me to is a huge part of what's got me to the point where I'm at today, you know, of like service and sacrifice and trying to show up and be the best person that I possibly can be. Because for me, my life was the opposite, 100%. Like 17, 18 years ago, my life was the opposite in the other direction. And that's where, for me, it's been so beneficial as far as like getting sober and all of those things, because it taught me so much about how to be a better person, a better individual, a better, you know, son to my parents, a better brother to my brothers and my sister, you know, and be a better operating member of society.
You don't have to, like, we don't have to go down this route too much, but so when you started to get sober, was it the white knuckling initially when you're 19 with the job that was the initial push, and then you went into the program after that?
So,
because the injury, I'm sure, had to have its own demons with it too.
Oh yeah, and we can talk about that also. So when I was 15, I'd gotten shipped off to rehab in Kalispell, Montana. It was a place called Wilderness Treatment Center, WTC, for anybody that may have gone there, because it's quite possible. So I got shipped there. From there, I got shipped down to Texarkana, Texas, to another place that I can't remember the name of, but I know it's still in circuit. It was like a halfway house. Did that, came home, managed to stay sober until I was about 18, and then at 18, I went back to the races because I was like an adult and I was cured, whatever bullshit I convinced myself of. So in that time period, there was a fella, and his name was Chili Billy. He's a motorcycle guy. And Chili was getting sober when I came back, so I kind of got to work with him and help him come through his demons and all that kind of stuff. Mind you, he was, 20, 30 years older than I was, 35 years older than I was at the time. So I went back out. Now, when I decided to try to fix my life, one of the first days I was supposed to go work, I couldn't go work because it was pouring rain. You can't work on a roof in the rain. So I ended up in a basement breaking concrete blocks with breaker bars, and Chili was the guy who I was doing it with. We were working for my dad. And Chili was like, man, your dad told me you're trying to clean up your life again and get your head out of your ass. That's great. You need to go here and you need to do this. And you know that because you told me 3 years ago when I was a punk-ass 15-year-old kid. And he's returning the favor. And so in my first week, that was when I was like, all right, I do need to go do that. And I went back and got into the program and started doing all that. Which the sad part about that story is Chili ended up dying right around when I had 90 days sober. The beauty in that is that, he died in his sleep, peaceful heart attack, and he was of age to have a heart attack. Like, he's getting into that realm. But the beauty in that is that he was able to live long enough to kick my ass back into the right gear. And here I am 17 years later, still trying to help people that are suffering, still trying to help people that have problems with drinking or whatever their ailment may be when it comes to drinking and addiction. And if he had died 90 days prior, I might be dead or in prison, so I was very fortunate, to get to have that experience with him again.
Yeah, that's I don't want to say it's incredible, the timing on some things in life where it's like
creepy, man.
Yeah, it's the forks in the road. It's like this decision like changed your life, or or this run-in with this person, which is why like you should again eventually look at life with this student-like wonder and constantly be able to learn and absorb and adapt and change. But it's really hard when and some people will say they find this when they find God, where like that now like I'm not God anymore. So like life, like, so I should help serve others, but and it can like anything can be your variant of a higher power or a higher purpose.
100%.
But that fuels more and more goodness, and now it's like compound interest, and now life just, and like even what you're saying, which I think was really cool, is like the tools and the characteristics that you took from the program or whatever thing you went to, like that is meaning. Because like now, like for me, when I was like going through my transitions in life and those kind of things, like it was really easy to look at me and try and solve my problems and not care about others and like fight your own demons and that kind of thing. But like, and so the whole day you're not really going through life with a lot of meaning, and then now you start adding meaning to like holding the door for others, or saying a kind word, or listening instead of preaching, and all these things compound. And now like you have this lifestyle where like the whole day is meaningful. And I know I used to put 110% effort into the bottle, and now I get to put 100% effort into a lifestyle, a home, a occupation, a passion, a job, a love, whatever it ends up being. I think that's where like those little flips in perspective, whoever pushes you, if you hear a podcast, or if you have this person in the basement breaking cement with you, like it doesn't matter. But if you're open to it and like you're willing
to teachable, back to what we've been talking about.
And it's just I think that's like a resounding message that needs, like, I hope everybody keeps pushing it in their lives, because like like it's it's unmissable, it's unmistakable when you do meet these people. And like we've both been lucky enough to see some of the people that we have mutual friends with be those
pillars.
Pillars in the community that exemplify it, lead by example, and then open the door for others. Because I think a lot of things in life are kind of like that, where you got to kick it. There's certain times in life where you got to kick the door down and go, and then, hey, everybody follow me. Like when I get my head about me after I kick the door down, then I'll start opening doors for others. But for now, it's time to like take care of my business. And then like now, like I'll get enough understanding, I'll get enough mastery, I'll get enough resources, whatever ends up being, to start opening the doors. And I just think that's just like a leadership tactic that I usually like try and preach, because like there's times for both in life, and like sounds like you've been through both as well. But it's fun. And like now that like you've taken these tools and move forward, and now where you are and doing what you're doing, like you got to be beyond excited about what's going on.
Well, so what's really cool today is like my parents are so thrilled, like they are so ecstatic about everything I get to do and getting to witness it firsthand. And so my uncle had a very successful career, and I always reference my uncle. My uncle did amazing stuff with his life. Phenomenal stuff. Changed a lot of everything that we see today in content, all kinds of stuff. He helped build and fortify all that kind of stuff. And it was, as a child, it was so cool to grow up watching my uncle hanging out with the people that he got to hang out with.
So what was his job? Sorry.
So he developed the first housing for underwater cameras for Nikon.
Oh, sweet.
So, I mean...
that world's endless, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, the deep dive into that, National Geographic for decades, Hollywood motion pictures for decades. Like, he lived it. And on top of that, he was also an amazing diver, whether it was free diving or it was scuba diving, shipwrecks, finding crowns, hanging out with Fidel Castro. Like, he lived a life that was absolutely insane, or like when they were filming Titanic and I was just a kid and I'm getting to hear about my uncle hanging out with the cast of the Titanic and Cameron and like everybody that everything they're all doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was old enough to comprehend what they were doing. So I always got to see that, and my parents always got to see that, on that perspective. And now they're seeing a similar transition where, me as their kid is getting to live a similar life as to what my uncle lived, hanging out with prolific people, rubbing shoulders with giants, and, getting to bring our family tradition into these people's lives and really expand on that and try to share the love, that my grandfather had. And, my grandfather was always known for just being a very loving, he was a fish and game warden, but he was very fair. He was very just. He was very honest. if someone made a mistake and it was an apparent mistake, he wouldn't write them a ticket or an infraction. He would talk to them about it and go over it with them and then resolve the issue and give them another chance to be a better person. And that's on them to do whatever they were going to do with it. That's on the individual. But he would do his best to do that kind of stuff. So I get to do that today. I mean, I'm not writing tickets or anything like that. But I get to do that and try to live in his footsteps and my uncle's footsteps and lead by example as far as what you can do coming from being a homeless alcoholic at 19 to where I'm at 37 years old. And the progress that you can make as an individual if we get our head out of our ass and really decide to put our determination, put that 110% refocused into something positive and what we can do to affect and help other people and change lives.
And it should excite you.
It does.
Yeah, and that's but I mean that's a dynamite story in and of itself. Yeah. Just the encapsulation of your life and because another side of that too is like the understanding where if we're talking to the 19-year-old you right now, like you got but it might when the student's ready to
30-year-old me.
Yeah, but when what's the saying, that when the student's ready, the teacher appears kind of concept, and you're not going to hear it. Like I would love to go back and tell my 19-year-old self a million different things, but he probably is not going to hear it, kind of deal. So it's like now, like you're talking to that person, like, is there advice you would give? Because like my biggest thing is like you can tell people the recipe, but like that you also got to understand it's time, energy, effort, discipline, sacrifice, all these other things.
Yeah.
So is there like a kernel that or a nugget that would just like you would think would hit?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing that I could say that's helped me a lot is willingness. You know what I mean? And I've had a lot of failure in my life. A lot of failure. Lost jobs, lost family, and when I say lost family, like due to alcoholism and drug addiction and being a terrible person, I've lost everything in my life. And the willingness to change and the willingness to look at our own behaviors and assess our own behaviors and try to find where we can be better and what we can do to be better, and also being open-minded enough open-minded and willing enough to make the changes that need to be made in order to pursue that. And then to take that further in the last 5-6 years, a lot of it is just being willing to say yes and show up. When someone asks me to show up, no matter how much I want to or don't want to show up. And not only show up, but show up early, leave late. You know what I mean? Help put away the chairs. If there's a task where I could jump in and assist, jump in and assist. I'm not just there to show up late and leave early and not be of assistance. Like, when someone has me come to something and they want me to be there, like, show up early. What can I help with? Do you need help with the dishes? Do you need help taking the trash out? Like, what can I do to help with the situation to make it easier for everybody, so not one person is taking the brunt of the work?
Yeah, that's savagery. Just because and I saw you do it at Clean Eats as well, so it's really cool to see. But like, it's not like they're not hiring the 3 hours of flip flopping, or like you're getting the person, and the person is this again in depth, big-hearted, helpful, like, again, person of service. I mean, that's willing.
Well, and when it comes to flip-flopping as well, like there's so much more to it than just showing up and cooking a leg. For me, it's I'm not like, I don't show up to places when people have me come out. I'm excited to be there. I'm excited to cook, and I'm excited to experience the cook, but I'm excited to meet the people, and I'm excited to get to know the people. Whether it's the attendees or it's the staff that's putting it on, and interact with those people, because who knows which person and all of those people that I'm going to get to interact with is going to give me the next grain of self-efficiency, self-motivation, or maybe they're struggling and they need someone to talk to and they've never had someone to talk to about whatever the issue is that they're struggling with, and they find it comfortable to confide in me and, seek advice or, I can't think of the right word, but getting to show up and help and be of service.
Open up that door of communication. And but the cool thing about that too, and I mean, it's beyond cool, but like the not playing the status game there and like just talking to the director, because like a lot of these events are like set up similarly in that essence where it's like you're either working with like a COO or a director of just the event or the company, and then you're again like you are like there is the people that are doing the event, there's people that are supporting the event, there are people that are cleaning up after the event, and all these things, but like something I've learned and I keep trying to adopt, and like I was cool because I was actually observing you at the event, because you were like by the time I linked up with you at the event, you already done your deal.
Yeah,
like you're there enjoying and experiencing, you're living what you're talking about. And so like with people that walk what they talk, I have like just immense respect from like silent observation. And then it just looked like you're enjoying yourself too, where it's just like, and because like I'm still in the phase, I'm still getting into this coaching career or whatever you want to call it, where it's like I'm still like feeling out like how I need to like either add value or like where, like how much can I help, and like and to the extent now, like you saw it at Clean Eats too, like everybody needs help, or everybody needs the conversation, or everybody, especially like the breath work, and because you start talking about emotions coming up or controlling emotion, and or like people's fear and anxieties come up. So like the form of communication that comes up are a lot of stories, and with every different type of person, from somebody doing like just watching what I'm doing, or the people that are actually getting in the ice or breathing and breathing at this rate and those kind of things. And what you learn really fast, everybody has a story. Everybody has something like a nugget of advice that they got in their life that like boom, flip, hit. And it's just like things like that, where it's just like that perspective should, by what's a good way to say it, by elimination, show you not to play the status game and not to tailor things to the person. Now I actually got one. That's my guy though. But yeah, I just think that's a cool way to start stripping away, because like I've also been at events where it's just like, this is my resume, this is my resume, this is my resume, let's talk about my resume, let's talk about your resume, and like that's it. And like that's I don't really mess with that anymore. I don't try to.
Interesting network events those ones are.
Yeah, and but still, like, just because the events like that doesn't mean like that shapes me in my conversation. So like I start asking questions. Like people don't know how to, like when you ask them weird questions, they don't. It's like my own social experiment where it's like, then you start asking people that don't get asked questions, like the people that are working the event sometimes, and it just like, okay, now everything snowballs and everything becomes more fun in general for that person included, and honestly myself.
One thing that I really love, especially because I have such a like weird diverse background in life history and things that I've done, is the social experimentation that you're talking about. And you can really kind of like get the vibe on some people, like, because I can dive into like a life experience that I had and then figure their reaction and then see how uncomfortable it makes them, and what's going on there, and like mentally and psychologically, why are they having this reaction? Did they have a parent that maybe was an alcoholic, or they maybe not, you know what I mean? And like, not that I'm judging people, but like just social experimentation on like people's limits and where they're comfortable and where they're not comfortable. But it also benefits me in the circumstance of like, there's places where to not do that. Yeah,
for sure. But I still think that like that candid vulnerability, the candid honesty just ends up like trumping everything.
It does.
And I'm a big quote guy. Like I just love quotes. It's just kind of my bit. It's like they're like logic landmarks for me, or they just kind of like break down the message way simpler than I could. So like if somebody says it better, I try not to add to it usually.
Yeah.
I just regurgitate what it works for me. But there's this one, I heard it on the Real Ones podcast a while back, but it's pain is an adhesive. If you've been through it, you can share it a bit. Like, it basically allows you to connect with others. I butchered the quote, but in essence, but I think like again, pain, traumas, and like that vulnerability about them. Like if you've been to a dark place and come out of it, or like, and you can simplify it to sports where like if you go through a grinding training camp together, like you have more culture, you have more to connect about, you have the pain or the suffering to connect about. And I think like that can be encapsulated in some of these smaller interactions where it's like you're sharing and you have this incredible life capacity.
And to go further with that, I can't tell you how many places I've been and events I've been to where either at the event or after the event, people will reach out to me, because I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to share my gnarliest stuff that's happened to me in the past of my life, because I know one of the only things that saved my life for me from where I was someone else being publicly vulnerable in a closed setting in a group of 150 men and sharing their gnarliest stuff that no one would ever want to share with anybody else, and that giving me the ability and the power to share mine myself, and because you were mentioning vulnerability just a few minutes ago, and being able to be vulnerable with people allows them to feel comfortable to be vulnerable back. And then where that can go, who knows?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But everybody's always saying everybody's struggling, and no one shares about, no one talks about it, So one of my goals is always to find someone that is struggling and I'll share whatever publicly, and those people that struggle or are struggling will seek me out later privately to talk to me about it and be like, man, I'm like I've never told anybody this in my entire life, and I was taking this to my grave, but I can share this with you. How did you come through this? How did you deal with this? What can you do to help me get through this? And, share experience back and forth, and hopefully work through something that in our minds, when we're keeping things private, turn into these enormous mountains. In real life, in reality, they're just mouse turds that all we got to do is pole vault over them really quick, figure out a solution, and then keep going.
Not let them grow.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's lessons for me there in the vulnerability aspect, because like initially when I got into like, again, transitioning like into coaching, like you're the coach, you think you're supposed to know it all, but really like a great sign of a great coach is somebody that's asking questions and learning constantly themselves openly. And because like it's just more of like an imposter syndrome thing that I went through for a while, but it's still like it's a constant learning thing in the coaching world, and really it's in the human being world.
It's a human condition.
Yeah, it's the human condition is like if you can have a compassionate human condition, like life gets really cool. And like it just, again, I think just because if you want a meaningful life, everything's meaningful. Like that's my quote that gives me this logic to like, okay, like that's why I should be like that. And so like, and that's just like, that's how I string things together and eventually change my habits or my actions. But I like that a lot. And it's just, it's visible. And so they're just, as somebody that's been around you for a very limited time, and excited to get to know you more, obviously too, but like to see it in action and applied, or like I got to observe it first and now we got to break it down. Like it's sweet. It's like, it's a really cool way to live.
Yeah.
But just there's a couple that we skipped over a couple things because obviously you're big on the conservation sector. Yeah. Well, like I'm brand new to the outside world, like not the outside world, but like the hunting world. I've always been like a hiker and get outside in nature kind of human. But like now you get into the world of like, I had no idea how things were funded. Like how, like even to take care of like the national parks, the state parks in Ohio, whatever it ends up being. But like a lot of that comes from hunters. Can you break down a little bit of that world? Because I don't know how many of a lot of my followers are more athlete strength based and that kind of thing, but a lot of them love the hunting world too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
So in hunting, in the outdoor recreation, there's taxes on archery equipment, there's taxes on ammo, there's taxes on rifles, and a certain portion of that money is allocated strictly to go back into preservation and conservation of wildlife, whether it's working on a wildlife preserve, dumping money into rehabilitating a species, and you can look at that with like state budgets for bighorn sheep or state budgets for Rocky Mountain elk and whatever it is that they're doing. So a lot like tag sales, hunting licenses, all that stuff gets dumped back into animals and dumped back
the preservation of the animal life.
Yeah, well, the preservation of the habitat that they're in and all that kind of stuff. So for me, conservation is very important on a lot of places. What I've really deep dove into since 2015 is wild sheep. I love wild sheep. Phenomenal animal. I would say that the biggest and best conservation that you could see in America today would probably be waterfowl. And what's happened with waterfowl, duck hunting, birds, the flyways. Yeah. You look at California and the Butte Sink and everything that CWA and DU have been able to accomplish in the rehabilitation and building new wetlands for birds and everything like that. But wild sheep for me is huge. I've gotten to participate in the transfer, I believe, of 183 bighorn sheep, hands-on, boots on the ground, fecal samples, ear sample, like cotton swabs in the ears, ear, nose, and throat samples, blood samples, everything like that, through a company called Kuyu. And Kuyu's just a camo apparel company. And what they've done is they've developed a hands-on conservation direct for their customer base. And a lot of, they're the first private company to really be doing this and really be diving full steam into, last year they took over the entire state budget for the state of Arizona for their bighorn sheep and rectifying the species transplanting, making sure that they're disease free.
Because that's a big problem with them is like the domestic sheep mixed with the bighorn sheep. And is it pneumonia?
Yeah.
Or what is it?
Dude, you nailed it, man.
I'm learning. I'm learning slowly.
Dude, you nailed it. You're not off at all. That's an enormous problem. And even here in Montana, where I live, they've had problems where entire mountain ranges, herds of sheep will get wiped out because one sheep will end up contracting pneumonia from domestic sheep, but they'll share the same water source, something as small as that. And then once a bighorn gets it, it transfers it to the entire herd and kills them off in a matter of years.
That's craziness.
So we can spend all this time rehabbing and putting new sheep in new areas and
building fences, whatever.
We don't build fences, but you look at like Antelope Island, and Antelope Island had a thriving herd of sheep. There was a drought one year. One of the bighorns got off the island, went over to where someone had a local sheep herd, mixed with them through the fence, and then went back to Antelope Island, and the entire island
decimated.
So we ended up capturing, I think it was 26 bighorns up at Rocky Boy Indian Reservation, and took those 26 down, and the ewes were pregnant. So it was instant payoff and doubling the herd size after we dropped them off on the island. But that herd is doing well and everything's doing great. And I'm pretty sure they put in fences around the island to prevent that from happening in the future.
That's awesome.
But, it's sheep hunting is, to me, it's the pinnacle of hunting. Is
it because it's so difficult, like up in the mountains, or what's the attraction?
With everything, the financial aspect, because it's not cheap to hunt sheep.
Can you give me a ballpark? Because I don't know much. Like
starting is, we'll call it $30,000
to hunt bighorn sheep. Because tags.
Hunt one. Bighorn sheep, I'd put it even higher. That'd be thin horn. Would be Dall sheep. Would be ballpark. Would be entry would be about 30. If you're going to get into desert sheep, you're looking anywhere from, I don't know, 50 to 90. And if you get into Rocky Mountain, you're probably looking anywhere from like 80 to 150. And then if you're talking about stone sheep, which is another thin horn, British Columbia up that way, you're looking anywhere right now probably from like 75 to 120. And that doesn't include auction tags, which auction tags go for, I think last year at Sheep Show in one night.
The John Bear auction at all?
Yeah, John Bear.
Shout out John Bear.
Yeah, shout out to the savage, man. He's a brute. But yeah, I think John was the auctioneer, and I think between 3 tags they raised almost $1 million.
Oh man,
which was insane.
I see.
In one night.
Yeah, and I don't even.
And all that money is all supposed to go back to wild sheep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, and it sounds like a great system to do so, and like actionable, really clean.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like some like. We're not going to go down this route, but some of like the 501c3s and like it all depends on how the money's getting funneled. If you can see the action, like I'm sure
That's sketchy.
I'm sure you have your own experience, and I've seen it in football. Like a lot of guys have their own charities, or like we're not going to go down this route. Besides the point, but
I get why.
Yeah, but when you do find a good cause that vets, and like I'm just learning that like the habitats like that I like to go hiking in, the animals I like to see, and hopefully eventually want to hunt, that like how does that stay the way it is or get improved or regulated so that it's not like a poaching society or anything like that. And so like I'm just learning now, but the more and more I've learned, like everything, like anybody that cares about it usually has some conservation understanding, and they're helping or trying to help in some way or do something to like your you said it was your grandpa that was the Field and Wildlife.
Yeah, he was a fish and game warden.
Yeah, fish and game warden. Like those people are great conduits for education and the ability, like the way to navigate it properly. And then, but like now I'm just learning, so like that's why I want to talk about it, because I'm curious in that realm, because I've killed a couple deer and hogs and like that kind of thing in my day, but like I haven't, and ducks, that kind of thing, but I haven't got into the big game hunting or like the consistent deer hunting for meat. And so I'm learning, but I'm trying to learn the right way. And luckily I got Laura and Jana Waller and all these other people in my corner there.
Dude, Jana's a savage, man.
Oh, yeah.
I want to shout her out really quick. At the maybe it's like the end of the season last year, or somewhere during wolf season up here in Montana, watching her facilitate and do the Fish and Game Commission meeting. They were doing a live stream, and watching her and the commission work in Montana and how effective they were and how they were understanding, and they are also very fact of the matter, was amazing. And getting to sit in those Fish and Game Commission meetings and see how they operate and what they're doing, where their morals are, and how that they are actually for hunting and building a better hunting future for youth, for adult onset hunters, for anybody that's getting into hunting, is just amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shout out Jana. At Skullbound TV, I believe is where you can follow her. But she's with Laura, she has a show on Carbon TV as well. Shout out Carbon TV. But yeah, she's constantly she constantly is doing things that I see where she's managing all those things in majestic fashion with grace. But But anyways. Anything else you want to touch on? Where can people find you?
People can find me. It's super easy. It's at the Flip Flop Guy.
On socials, website is at theflipflopguy.com.
It's .co. I acquired the com. I haven't built it out yet or done all the back end
that's
stuff.
a whole undertaking.
And I just, because I'm a one-man show, I just took on somebody to help me with social media in the last week. And that is already like been such a breath of fresh air for me. But yeah, it's at the Flip Flop Guy, and the website is www.theflipflopguy.co.
Boom. And that's you can get obviously the methodology, the technique, and the tradition of it, the story, and then also all the sauces.
I sell the sauces. So the sauce, if you wanted to do a flip flop, we sell legs on the website.
Oh, bam.
So people can actually buy a full leg and do it in their own backyard. It's the only USDA legitimate wild game sold in America. It's through a company called Maui Nui Venison. Phenomenal company, phenomenal people. What they have built in Hawaii for conservation and helping the islands of Hawaii as a whole is remarkable. I wish everybody could take Jake's conservation model and really learn, understand it, and try to replicate that in one stance or another. I mean, he's worked.
What's his name?
Jake, and I couldn't pronounce his
name. Okay.
So he runs Maui Nui Venison.
Okay.
And for him to get to where he's gotten with Maui Nui Venison has been a very, very long, grueling 12-year, probably longer than 12-year process. And what he's built is remarkable. I mean, the axis deer on the islands of Hawaii were destroying vegetation. They were destroying entire mountainsides.
I heard they're out of control, yeah.
Destroying. So what you were running into was eating all the plant life. Then there's no roots to hold the soil together, so you're dealing with a major erosion problem. Not only that, almost wiping native plants completely off of the species map whatsoever. But all that erosion flows into the creeks, streams, and rivers. From there, it flows into the bays and estuaries, and now you're dealing with killing coral life and killing aquatic life because of the sediment resting on top of the coral and everything like that. So
nothing happens in isolation.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And Jake has built something that actually can help rectify that and help save the islands of Hawaii. It's remarkable.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Boom. Well,
yeah.
Appreciate your time, vulnerability, honesty. All the, you're a stud. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man.
Boom.
Yeah. Thanks.